One of the main problems D&D faced with Season 8 of Game of Thrones, besides the poor characterization, teleportation, and dropping quality of the dialogue, was that they failed to realize the dilemma that comes with subversion of expectations. You see, subversion of expectations simply refers to the act of tossing what's expected out of the window and going with something unexpected. Oftentimes, this can be done well. However, when one fails to understand the dilemma of subversion of expectations and simply throws the norm out of the window for the sake of shock value, D&D, you run into the main problem the 8th season of Game of Thrones smashed into. Think about it for a second. Why is it that so many writers keep using cliches despite how frowned upon they are? Well, that's primarily because of how effective cliches are. Most cliches in storytelling, such as the forbidden love trope, have withstood the test of time. They have been told by storytellers in Rome and before that to the days of the pharaohs. The reason people keep tuning into cliched stories that probably have cliched unpredictable endings is because they are, to put it bluntly, entertaining. Tens of billions have heard it over the many millennia, and these tropes have seeped into popular culture, effectively capturing the minds of listeners, readers, and viewers. Take a trope like the love triangle in young adult books. It's not rampant in young adult books, but one could also argue it is harming the young adult books. However, one should also stop for a moment and consider, if the love triangle is harming young adult books, then why do so many readers keep turning the pages? Consider the dynamics between Frodo and Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. A wide-eyed child with little to no understanding of the world around them is joined by a grand sage, wizard, whatever, and is guided along a journey of discovery by said wizard. The cliche of ignorant character being taught something persists in stories, and especially in the more speculative stories such as fantasy and science fiction, because it works. It teaches the audience about concepts and as a result moves the story along at a good pace. I mean, imagine if everything Gandalf said was given 5 chapters of every goddamn book where Frodo discovers each one of them by himself. That would be so bad, it would destroy the entire point of the story. It would drag the tension and everything about the story so much that the story would become worthless. Because in every 10 chapters, we would only see one story beat. The alternative to this trope would be to not have it at all. But as I said before, once a writer does that, they are left with the problem of expositing information to the audience. How they do that will determine the quality of the subversion. Whether it's good, like does it get the information across as effectively without coming off as an info dump, or whether it's bad, like does it achieve the task of expositing information as efficiently as the ignorant character trope. If it does not, and if it's worse, then please stick with the ignorant character trope that needs to be taught. I can go on all day, but the point is that tropes and cliches exist for a reason. And more to that, these tropes and cliches have survived the test of time for the same reason they exist. All in all, they do what they do very well, and so well in fact that most writers don't even bother trying to find alternatives. With that said, now we come to the dilemma of subversion of expectations. When a writer subverts expectations, what they are doing is undermining a cliche or a trope. That itself comes with many challenges, but none are more important than this. Mainly that the writer has to come up with a better alternative, an alternative that is more effective and does the job of the cliche better. This is where D&D have failed with the 8th season of Game of Thrones. Well, they did that in the 7th season, but it is now more apparent in the 8th season. All of the subversion they undertook weren't better than the expected result, weren't better than the cliche. The promised prince prophecy? Gone. The expectation of Bran to do anything after that whole season 6 fiasco? Gone. The expectation for Jon's dynamic with Dany to be interesting after the reveal? Gone.
She is my queen. You are my queen. Daenerys is our queen. She is our queen. She'll be a good queen. You are my queen. I don't know what else I can say.
You can say nothing.
I don't want it. I told you I don't want it. I never wanted a crown. She's not her father.
At this point, I'm thinking right after they finished writing the first draft of the screenplay, they just hopped onto a bed with each other and started stroking their egos. Subversion of Expectations is a dangerous game to play. If a writer wants to do it properly, they have to make sure what they're replacing the cliche with is not only more effective in terms of function, but is also logically sound. J.R.R. Martin is one of those people who understand how to subvert expectations. In every case, he not only throws cliches out of the window, but he also replaces them with something far superior, something almost too good, and in fact so good that I wonder why what he did is not the cliche, as in why don't more of us start doing what he does? Take the death of Robb. In all honesty, I did not expect Robb to die.
Mother.
The Lannisters send their regards.
And although it brought me few tears, I did not scoff and point out how ludicrous Robb's death was, in much the same way I did with Dany. Instead, I was applauding Tywin for playing the Game of Thrones. All that transpired was consistent with the internal theme and the overall way the story has thus far progressed. Logic, check. Impact, check. Improvement over the cliche that Robb would eventually avenge his parents, check. Because if God is to be honest, Robb's death brought more to the story than the lack of his death would. I mean, there was so much tension in the air after Robb died. All of a sudden, every one of my characters was in danger. All of a sudden, every time they ran into the enemy, I was scared for them. Because of that, Robb's death brought more to the story than the lack of his death would. And the same can be said for Ned Stark's demise as well. All of the subversion J.R.R. Martin engages in are not only better than the cliches, but they make absolute sense within the confines of the world and bring a lot of tension to the story. Meanwhile, in season 8 of Game of Thrones, D&D are here killing dragons off and saying shit like,
while Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her.
And the Golden Company has arrived in King's Landing, courtesy of the Greyjoy fleet. The balance has grown distressingly even.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces.
We need to find Euron Greyjoy's fleet and sink it.
Your Grace, he's already destroyed a good portion of our fleet.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces.
that's not only worse than the expectation, but it also makes absolutely no sense. This is King's Landing, okay? This is King's Landing. Look, here. This f***ing place is King's Landing. This is Dragonstone. Are you telling me that Dany is not focused and careful this close to the home base of the enemy? Listen, what you have done here is not only worse as well as dumb, but is also completely incompetent. Yes, I said it. It is absolutely incompetent. Subverting of expectation is a dangerous game, and if you want to play it as a writer, you have to make sure you bring your A game. You have to make sure to replace the cliche with something better, because at the end of the day, cliches have withstood the test of thousands of storytellers over many millennia. Both of you, on the other hand, haven't even been on this world for over 80 years combined. Alright, subscribe and like this video, share it with your friends, helping me grow my channel. Cheers. If you enjoyed it, please share this video. I need the shares. God bless you. And thank you for reaching this far. I love you so much. Have a nice day.